Welcome to the January 21st edition of the OBX Wave Report, where we discuss all things waves, weather, climate, and beach lifestyle. Yesterday, we did some Friday for Future episodes, one a tribute to David Crosby, whom we recently lost after a long bout of illness. And also, we got a beautiful beach meditation, a beach Friday for future meditation, as a skimboarder was honing his craft in some 1 to 2 foot waves near Jeanette's Pier during a beautiful 60-degree-ish January beach day. For today, for the Outer Banks, conditions are cooler with a northwesterly wind kicking up, and the air and skies are clear with cerulean blue skies overhead. Although looking at the geocolor composite, we can see kind of a sandwich of clouds here for the US East, for the central to eastern portion of the US, with a bank of clouds up here to the north, overflowing areas of land that are covered by recent snows. And then this gathering storm here in the Gulf of Mexico, which is forecast to potentially bring gale force conditions off the Outer Banks by later on Sunday and into Monday. This impulse is going to also bring warmer conditions as Gulf air is carried along with it from the south, and we here in the Outer Banks are going to get a piece of that. As this storm is predicted to move northward, it's going to bring in winds from the south and southwest. So the south-facing beaches are predicted to see the surf kick up, likely ranging between 4 to 7 feet, possibly a little higher depending on how intense the gale gets. This particular storm is not predicted to be extraordinarily strong, but for us surfers, it does mean that there's going to be a bit of a southerly swell here. All right, so let's look at the infrared satellite shot. And before I go on, I do want to note that conditions out here for California remain rather clear. And you can see this very evidently in the infrared satellite shot with just a little impulse nipping in here over the extreme northwestern portion of California. But this, I don't know, if this system's producing any rain, it looks like it's going to be light as it's pretty weak. So our friends over there in California are enjoying a respite from the severe weather that they have seen recently. Let's hope that this respite doesn't switch back to extreme drought as the tendency has been lately with our warmer than normal atmosphere enhancing evaporation and precipitation events on both sides of the hydrological scale for California. You can also see the storm gathering here, drawing energy from the Gulf, a bit of a swirl here to the north of Texas, kind of indicative of a low trying to form. And then we've got some disturbed weather moving in over the Great Lakes, nothing too crazy. Out here in the North Atlantic, very broad low pressure system heading off into Baffin Bay, getting out past Newfoundland as we provide you this report. But yes, it is this impulse here in the central US that is potentially bringing some gale force conditions in the offshore environment of the Outer Banks. Looking at the National Weather Service radar and looking at the alerts, you can see those gale watches up for the, let's see, it looks like Oregon Inlet south to Morehead City. So this whole section of the Outer Banks from Oregon Inlet down to Morehead City is under a gale watch. Up here in Nag's Head, we just have small craft advisories as those winds are expected to kick up out of the south and southwest. As we zoom out, we can see the area of disturbed weather here near the Gulf, the swirl of precipitation in Oklahoma, and these systems this system is expected to get a little bit more organized as it heads on to the east. Doesn't look like much in the way of snowfall with the disturbance over the Great Lakes. So that one coming in from the north is a bit weak, although it may provide some energy for this system as the cold and the warm, the cold from the Arctic and the warm from the Gulf of Mexico come into conflict in this new storm system sweeping in. And looking at the NOAA quantitative prediction forecast, which gives us an indication of where the storms are going to show up for the United States, we do see that the hotspot remains the US Southeast. And here at the Outer Banks, we're actually getting into a bit of a hotspot zone as well, particularly in the near offshore environment. So we might see some stormier conditions over the next 7 days. Again, worth noting that California is virtually precipitation less, just generally speaking, although there might be a few spots of precipitation here and there, but still a break ongoing for California. Moving down to our local wave reports, and I do have a confession to make. I did forget to write down the notes, so I'm just going to give you guys a more broad assessment of wave conditions for the Outer Banks. But down at Jeanette's Pier right now, the waves are in the range of 2 to 3 feet. And this is the case for most of the northeast facing beaches. So as we go on up to Avalon Pier here up in Kitty Hawk, we've got 2 to 3 foot waves as well. And then at Bathhouse, so just pretty much all up and down the northeast facing beaches, we've got 2 to 3 foot waves. And this is due to a swell coming in from the north and northwest. We've got a northwest wind that is kicking up a swell coming in from the north. And that's pushing higher waves into the north facing beaches. Uh, Weather conditions today right now are in the middle 40s. We've got winds out of the northwest in the range of about 15 to 25 miles per hour for most of these locations. Ocean water temperatures are in the range of the upper 40s to lower 50s for all of these locations along the north facing beaches. And for today, the weather conditions are expected to be cooler, windier, clear with some warming throughout the day. All right, so looking south, let's talk about the more east facing beach. We got Road Anthony here with 1 to 2 foot surf. We've got Avon with 1 to 2 foot surf, and we've got Billy Mitchell Airport here with 2 foot surf, and Frisco just down the line here with 1 to 2 foot surf. And the water temperatures are rather warmer here in the lower 60s, particularly as we get out into Hatteras Island. Buxton here with 60-degree water temperatures. Air temperatures are also in the middle 40s right now, with highs in the upper 40s to lower 50s. So a cooler day today. Do make sure you have your cold weather protection available for you. The wave conditions are not really expected to start to improve for the south-facing beaches until later on Sunday. And this as a potential gale kicks up in the near offshore environment. So for right now, the north-facing beaches getting larger waves, but generally speaking, wave conditions for the Outer Banks are relatively small in the range of 1 to 3 feet all up and down the Outer Banks. All right, so let's talk about some larger weather, larger weather patterns, and I'm going to talk about two high pressure systems. We've got a blocking high here off of Europe, and we've got a blocking high here off of the West Coast. And these high pressure systems are both deflecting storms up to the north. Here in the eastern US, we have more of a tendency for a trough arrangement as impulses come in from Canada and storms tend to form over the Gulf of Mexico and then track north and eastward up the East Coast. And so I'm going to just go ahead and advance this model. Worth noting that the areas of white here are high pressure, the areas of purple and moving into kind of a reddish purple are low pressure systems. And south of the Aleutians right now, we've got a very strong storm in the range of 959 millibars, kicking up some major surf or large swells out in the shipping lanes. And I will talk to you guys about that in a minute. But here on the Outer Banks, we're watching this little storm form here. And so let's just go ahead and advance the models. We got the blocking high. We've got the storm forming as we get into later in the day on Saturday. And then into Sunday, more of an organized system over the Mississippi River Valley as the blocking high out west deflects storms to the north over the Pacific, and then the blocking high off of Europe deflects storms into the area that is east of Greenland. And we see this storm form later in the day on Sunday, and then get a real kick as it gathers near the coastline with strong southerly winds. That gale watch, or the reason for that gale watch, getting even more organized as it moves up the coast, and you've got a bit of an impulse coming in here across Canada that's going to join up with the system coming in from the south for more strong weather conditions, more intense weather conditions up here in the northeast US, so Maine particularly, and then for eastern Canada as the storm gathers steam and then roars out into Baffin Bay. And then another impulse begins to gather for the US Southeast. And we will note that throughout these throughout the model, the blocking high remains in place off the US West Coast, and another blocking high remains in place off of Europe, again forcing those storms, in this case as the high broadens here off of Europe, into Greenland and into the Arctic here near Svalbard and north of Siberia. All right, so that's the general weather picture. Let's look at, I was looking at these models here that showed the blocking high, but let's just go ahead. I'm gonna take us back down to the closer North American picture. There we go. Nope, that's not what I want. Where's my precipitation models? Here we go. Let's see. There we go. All right. So looking at the precipitation models, I'm just going to run this model and show you the tendency for storms to develop here in the southeast and the tendency for storms to move up to Greenland. We got the blocking high and the tendency for storms to move up to Alaska. So let's just go ahead and run the models. And so we've got this most recent storm that's expected to intensify off the US East Coast and then sweep on into Baffin Bay. A second storm coming in behind it in the Wednesday to Thursday timeframe, bringing some severe weather as the blocking high continues toward the west coast and the other blocking high across the Atlantic towards Europe, with storms running in across Greenland and maybe a storm slipping underneath it. And then another impulse dipping down from Canada, a bit of a Alberta Clipper type system here, and another low crouching in over the Rockies, this by Saturday of next week, and we're getting further out into the models. And then by next Sunday, we've got another impulse gathering near the Gulf, and again gaining energy both from the Gulf and from the cold air sweeping down from the north. Let's go ahead and play this. And then, woo, we get a storm developing off of Cape Hatteras here, and this in the January 31st timeframe. And then as we get into February, another storm starting to form in the Gulf. So generally more stormy for the US East, less stormy for the US West as a blocking high wards storms off the West Coast, and less stormy for Europe. So let's get down into the wave models because, you know, these storms do affect the waves. The more stormy it is, the more intense the waves are. So I'm going to move from east to west to just get an assessment. The big waves right now are focusing in near Greenland, Iceland, and south of Svalbard and north of Siberia. So let's go ahead and advance the models. This is near Europe. So we've got for tomorrow, very significant 25 to 28 foot wave heights, significant wave heights off of Iceland in association with a storm. We've got a very strong storm raging south of Svalbard here with 28-foot significant wave heights. And then this system is expected to really gather steam south of Svalbard by Monday, with 35 foot significant wave heights near the ice here up in the Arctic as it rages into Tuesday toward the ice pack near Siberia to the east of Svalbard. And then we get another storm gathering here off the southern tip of Greenland. So this is where the stormy conditions are focusing in, just the far north here, south and east of Greenland, near Iceland, near Svalbard, and then near western, the region of western Siberia, west of the Yamal Peninsula here. All right, so now let's look at the Outer Banks. And so for today, we've got the swell coming primarily in from the north with that northwesterly wind, with the larger waves in the range of 4.5 feet-ish in the offshore environment near the northeast facing beaches. And the south facing beaches are seeing the swell kind of move offshore with that northwest wind, even though the swell is in the range of 3.5 feet. By tomorrow, the swell starts to build in from the south a little bit as the southerly winds start to kick up, but the swell is not really apparent until Monday, or late Sunday and into early Monday, as those stronger winds begin to kick up and 8-foot-ish, 8 to 9 foot surf in the near offshore environment for the south facing beaches, with the swell running from southwest to northeast and a bit of a turn in the swell toward the northeast facing beaches. So we might get a little bit better waves, but most of the waves coming in for late Sunday and into early Monday coming in from the south and affecting the south and southeast facing beaches here. In the further offshore environment, we do have 20-foot significant wave height, so that's pretty big for the nearer coastal waters of the East Coast. And then running into Tuesday, we get the swell again begin to tamp down, and the next impulse doesn't gather until Thursday, which is, you can start to see it here in the south with some southerly winds, but it's not, let's see if we can get some hours here. Yeah, actually it does become more visible as we get into, the more into the Thursday timeframe. So yeah, so by Thursday we're getting waves in the range of about 8 to 9 feet in the near offshore environment in this model as well. So two main impulses for the Outer Banks driving surf, both of them coming from the south as storms sweep up from the Gulf of Mexico and gale to near gale force conditions start to kick up in the offshore environment. Both of these storm systems are not too extreme, so at least as far as coastal effects go, we'll have to keep a weather eye toward severe weather and see how that emerges. So thank you for joining me for this edition. Oh, hold on. Actually, let's look to the West Coast. There was one more thing I wanted to show you. All right, so let's look at this big storm out off of the Aleutians right now. We got a big old 957, 958, 959 millibar low out here south of the Aleutians. Very powerful storm over a warmer than normal pool of water in the northern Pacific here with significant wave heights in the range of 46 feet, so which are a real beast for the shipping lanes. Looking at the U.S. West Coast waves are nowhere near as large, with significant wave heights for the central to northern beaches in the range of 6 feet. And then as you head south, significant wave heights much smaller for the southern facing beaches, south and southwest facing beaches here off the US West Coast. And you can see these storms rolling in and turning up toward Alaska and Canada, although it does appear that we get some impulses running down off the backside of this high, well, let's see. Yeah, off the high pressure system jogs around, so it looks like here we've got a bit of let's look at the air. Yeah, a bit of a wind coming in off the front side of the high pressure system. And that's kicking up a swell in the, let's see, this will be in the Monday, yeah, Monday time frame. And let's go back to the ocean. So West Coast could see some larger waves by Monday, although for the south-facing beaches, you might get some wraparound surf as the swell kicks up to around 5 feet in the near offshore environment, 5 to 6 feet, and then for the central and northern beaches, around 9 to 10 feet. And then, yeah, you do get these impulses as the storms roll in and you get these swells coming in from these storms, although the effect of the storms is not direct now to the west coast. You're just getting more distant swells as the big old storms turn the Pacific Ocean into a bit of a like a bathtub here as it like riles up the water out here, and you get some impulses of swells sweeping in throughout the week in on the West Coast. All right, so thank you for joining me for the OBX wave report. Wave conditions here in the Outer Banks are 1 to 3 feet, with 2 to 3 foot waves out for the northeast facing beaches and 1 to 2 foot waves for the east and southeast facing beaches. It's not a very big day out there, but a gale or a near gale is expected to kick up the waves by late Sunday and into Monday. Weather conditions right now are cool with temperatures in the middle to upper 40s and possibly getting into the lower 50s today. Air temperatures are expected to warm up a bit for tomorrow and Monday as another impulse of stormy weather draws in some Gulf and Atlantic moisture in from the south. So thank you for joining me for the OBX Wave Report, where we discuss all things waves, weather, climate, and beach lifestyle. And please remember to do everything you can to help save our beautiful coastlines from the impacts of climate change driven by fossil fuel burning, the primary solution of which is to rapidly transition at this point to clean energy. So thank you for joining me again, and I will be back with you shortly.